Ladies and gentlemen, for over 110 years, one St. Louis family's roots have been woven within our city's game of baseball. It crosses 3 generations of baseball dynamics and greatness. Perhaps no other family in Major League Baseball has had the longevity and success as the 3 Bills. Of course, we are talking about the DeWitts, Bill Sr., Bill Jr., and Bill III. What would the best baseball town in America be without the DeWitt family? Let's welcome Bill Jr. and Bill III to the stage for their contribution to America's game. And conducting our interview, Ed Wheatley.
Bill was inducted, in case you didn't hear, he's already in our Hall of Fame. He's the middle of the 3 Bills, and you were inducted in 2013. But the accomplishments of the Cardinals, the DeWitt family is more than that. How many of you realize, the United States is honoring the 250th anniversary this year. Did you know baseball started in the major leagues in 1876? This is the 150th year of Major League Baseball that we will be celebrating. The DeWitt family, starting in 1916, began this career in baseball with Bill Sr., Bill's father. That's 110 years of the 150 years of Major League Baseball that the DeWitts have been there. And what Tom said, there is no one in the history of baseball, one family, that has been there longer than the DeWitt family. And I think we owe them a big round of applause. Yeah. Well, I said 1916. You talk about I wouldn't say rags to riches, but it's just an immaculate career. Bill DeWitt Sr. from St. Louis started working at Sportsman's Park for the Cardinals, selling soda. His work ethic and stuff was noticed by Branch Rickey. We're talking about, this history going back. We know Branch Rickey. We don't know necessarily about Bill DeWitt Sr., but Branch Rickey, he became his mentee, and he kind of guided him all the way through the Cardinal organization.
Yeah, he was interesting because he went down to the ballpark. He was a big baseball fan when he was 14 years old, and got a job with the concessionaire. And, teams were pretty small back in those days, not a big staff or anything. And Branch Rickey said to the concessionaire, have you got a kid down here that might be a runner for me or something? He said, I got just the kid for you, and it was my dad. So that's how he got started at 14 years old, working for Branch Rickey.
Yeah, and then he got into the front office, left the soda behind and got in the front office. He would actually become the treasurer of the Cardinals.
Yeah, and it was interesting because, he loved baseball and moved up the line. And Branch Rickey said, you need to get an education. So got a college degree at St. Louis U and got a law degree and never practiced law, but he always said it helped him in negotiating with players and all sorts of other things with baseball.
So he was part of the great Cardinal teams, 26, 28, 30, 31, 34. And then Branch Rickey may have felt a little, I won't say threatened, but he realized how good of a front office person your father was, and he kind of pushed him across the aisle, right?
Well, it was a little different from that, I think. My mother was a good friend of the Barnes family, and they bought the Browns.
Right.
So he moved over to the Browns when that happened, and his career continued on.
Well, his career continued on. He was president of the Browns from '36 all the way up to when they left. And during that period, we'll come back to the World Series in a minute, but during that period, he would become the owner of the Browns as well. So that young boy selling soda at Sportsman Park was soon going to not only own the stadium, but he also owned the team, the Browns. So, I mean, you talk about think about that for a young kid selling soda, and the next thing you own the stadium and the team.
Well, the Browns were struggling, and he didn't have the money to buy the team, so he talked the American League into lending him the money. And he said, you know, if you want a good operation here, I'm willing to buy the team, but I don't have the money. They actually lent him the money to buy the team, and you know, they did pretty well with it. But
It'd be a little hard to do that today. I guess.
Yeah. They won't. The MLB won't give you a bill, huh?
No.
But I mean, it shows the respect that, you know, not only did Branch Rickey have for your dad, the respect Major League Baseball had for your dad, and you know, he actually led the Browns under his guidance to the 1944 World Series, the one and only appearance by the Browns, and unfortunately, they, of all luck, they don't get to have the city to themselves. They have to share it with the Cardinals, and we know what happened there. But as a result, though, he wins the Executive of the Year in Major League Baseball that year in 1944. And after Bill Sr. stays with the Browns, Bill Veeck comes in, buys it from your father, eventually moves to Baltimore, and your dad spent some time in Detroit and New York, and then he winds up in Cincinnati, and things happen there too.
Well, just sort of the way the ball bounced. He, as you said, the team moved to Baltimore, but he didn't want to leave St. Louis, and he said, I'll, you know, help you along the way, but if I get a better offer, I'm going to take it. And Detroit called him. They had a new ownership up there and sort of heard that he was a pretty good baseball operator, so went to Detroit. And they had a group of owners who said, you're running it, you're doing everything, we don't know that much about it, and you know, we don't have one owner against the other and stuff. So after a year there, that kind of moved to one owner who said, you know, love what you've done here so far, but, you know, I'm kind of the boss. And he said, that's great. I may get a better offer, and if I do, I'll weigh it against what I'm doing here. So, so the next stop was Cincinnati,
Where he won a World Series pennant in 1961 and played the Yankees in the World Series.
Yeah,
And
I remember that series.
and
Wrong team won.
Yeah, Yankees were kind of powerful in '61 behind Maris and Mantle.
Yeah.
But he picked up a second Executive of the Year, correct? First guy to win it in both leagues, American League and National League.
Yeah, and he went over to the Reds, and they had finished sixth, and you know, made a bunch of really good trades, and the team won the pennant. So he was Executive of the Year that year.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. And then his next, I guess the biggest product of his time at the Reds was a thing called, and no offense to the color of the Cardinals, the Big Red Machine. Put together the Big Red Machine that we knew of the Cincinnati Reds in the 70s, and was the force behind that before he retired. And then you came along, and when your father retired and sold the team, that's when you first got your bit of ownership into the Reds?
Well, no, actually, I did have a piece of the ownership,
Right.
but a local group came in and wanted to run it, and you know, I felt like I better go find something else to do because I'm not going to be in charge here for a long time. I was pretty young out of college, so I was away from the game in a sense, from an ownership or operational or working with a club. So I kind of moved on and then got back in later.
Yeah, with several teams. And this gentleman here, you told me before, you had the most magnificent Halloween costume one year because you took one of baseball's most treasured pieces of memorabilia out on Halloween. Tell us the story.
Talking about Eddie Goodell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was quite something. I was 10 years old, and Bill Veeck owned the team here with the Browns at that time, and had this stunt of getting a small man to pinch hit knowing he would walk and thought that was, he was doing something different every day.
Every day.
Because the Browns weren't drawing and the Cardinals were the team. Browns didn't have a very good team. So, he came in one day and said, "I need your uniform." I said, "Really? What's up?" Because I used to wear the uniform out on the field, and the players, they didn't draw well, and not much of a crowd, and it the players were always nice to me. That throw the ball around and stuff. So I had this little uniform, but it was made by, I guess it was Rawlings back then. Yeah. So it was an official uniform, and he said, "I got to use it for a game in a couple days." Whoa. So it turned out it was Eddie Goodell, and it actually was a little big on him. but it essentially fit. So anyway, it became number 1/8 on the back, and quite a scene.
And it's over in the museum, in the display over there for those who didn't know that. But you did actually wear it out on Halloween, right?
Yeah, I did. And then loaned it to the Hall of Fame, and they were hoping I would donate it to them. But at that time, I was hoping to get back in the game, and it worked out that we came back to St. Louis, and it's in our Hall of Fame.
And one of the things I do want to talk about your father for one last thing, and talking about you were part there. You told me a long time ago you were out on the field when it happened. St. Louis Browns, as I said in my intro, they were progressive. They think St. Louis, we don't remember who were the third and fourth men to walk on the moon. We remember Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, but your dad put together the first, with the Browns, first time 2 African Americans took the field at the same time, Hank Thompson and Willard Brown, a very progressive thing that we forget about in St. Louis. And that was a lot with your dad's doing, that it's one of those special moments in baseball. By the end of the year of 47, there would only be 5 African Americans, and 2 of them were on your dad's team.
Well, he came up under Branch Rickey, and of course, Rickey for the Dodgers did such a good job with African American players, and he was, I think, the first in the American League, or one of the first.
Yep, second.
And I remember second.
Yeah,
I guess
Doby.
Cleveland was first with
Yes.
Larry Doby. But I was at that game when they came, and it was interesting because the 2 of them were together in the outfield, and it was just sort of interesting to see as a kid that, the way it was set up and so forth. But, it was sort of the beginning of the integration into baseball, and great thing.
Yeah, and it was done by a DeWitt. I mean, you think about what I've been talking about here for how many decades after decades after decades, these firsts that the DeWitts were involved in. And, you've bought the Browns, you and your son here, Bill Third, we're inducting tonight, so we're going to have all 3 Bills in the Hall of Fame. You have brought winning baseball to St. Louis. You don't win every year. There are time downs, but boy, I think we're looking good for the future. 4 World Series you've been in, 2 championships. You got a farm system that went from 24 last year to what, number 1 now in the ratings?
Yeah.
I think, Bill Third, you're taking the helms from junior, who took it from senior. What are you most proud of your father and grandfather?
Yeah, well, obviously I've learned a lot from him. It's been a real pleasure to work with him over these years. And but I just, the Cardinals have been great to our family. The fans of St. Louis have been wonderful. I think for me, the thing I'm probably most proud of is just the physical transformation of the stadium and Ballpark Village, and having a hand in all of that. It's just such a noticeable, tangible thing. But it's also, I'm proud of the family environment that we have in the front office and all the people that are committed and dedicated. We've grown the business. There are a lot of people there, more than there were. And we have an atmosphere of everybody kind of rowing in the same direction, right now we're trying to turn this thing around, but been many wonderful years of working hard on behalf of St. Louis, and we're committed to downtown, and hopefully can be part of a continued turnaround.
Well, I think, the tradition continues from that little boy selling soda in 1916 through these 2 gentlemen. The place down the street he talks about, the billboard says, "Welcome to baseball heaven, the best baseball fans in America." These are the guys who help us have the best baseball fans in America and the best baseball team.